I sat in the back row of the auditorium, tie slightly askew because I'd rushed to make it on time. The place was packed with proud parents holding up phones, ready to capture what everyone assumed would be a heartwarming moment. My stepson Tyler approached the microphone during his high school graduation ceremony, and I felt this weird flutter of pride mixed with anxiety. 18 years of raising this kid, and here we were. He cleared his throat and started thanking people. First, his mom, Melissa, who was practically glowing in the front row. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. "I want to thank my real mentor, Mr. Harrison. You've shown me what it means to be a man." A few people clapped. Some laughed nervously. Then Tyler turned and looked right at where I was sitting. "And shout out to the guy who kept the lights on." The laughter that followed wasn't polite. It was genuine, unfiltered, and humiliating. I didn't move. Just sat there in my beige jacket that I'd worn to every important event for the past decade, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. Nobody around me seemed to notice anything wrong. They were all still chuckling, thinking it was some kind of inside joke. But it wasn't a joke to me. 18 years. That's how long I'd been in Tyler's life. I'd taken him to every dentist appointment when Melissa was too busy with work. I'd sat through every excruciating school concert. When he was 5 and convinced there was a monster in his closet, it was me who checked every night for a month straight. Not Harrison with his fancy suits and expense account dinners. Not Melissa with her selective memory. Me. The guy in the back row wearing the same dress shoes from when Tyler first called me dad. After the ceremony ended, everyone filed out to the parking lot. Tyler walked past me like I was part of the furniture. His friends mobbed him, congratulating him on his speech. Melissa linked arms with her coworkers, pointing at Harrison like he was family. Nobody asked me to be in any photos. Nobody handed me a graduation cap to hold. I wasn't invisible exactly. I was just irrelevant. We got home around 9 that evening. I went straight to the garage without saying much to anyone. In the back corner, buried under Christmas decorations and camping equipment we'd used maybe twice, was a fireproof lockbox. I hadn't opened it in over a year. Inside was a single envelope containing a cashier's check for $250,000 made out to Yale University. Valid and ready to go. I'd been saving since Tyler was in 8th grade. Every bonus, every raise, every bit of overtime went into that fund. I'd driven the same beat-up truck for a decade. We never took fancy vacations. I'd even skipped going to the doctor for things I probably should have checked out. All of it went toward building what I thought was our future together. Tyler's future. A future where he'd understand that sacrifice means something. I sat there in the garage, holding that check and thinking about the microphone moment. The laughter, Melissa's dismissive wave when I'd tried to talk to her about it later. "Oh, come on, it was just a joke. Don't be so sensitive." That word sensitive, like it was some kind of character flaw to feel hurt. When someone you raised like your own son reduces you to a punchline. I put the check back in the envelope, closed the box, and locked it. Then I placed it right in the center of my workbench instead of hiding it in the corner. Sometimes the most powerful moves are the quiet ones. The next day, Melissa threw a brunch in the backyard. White folding chairs, mimosas, the whole deal. Harrison showed up, of course, playing host like it was his house. I watched him pour drinks and laugh with Tyler like they were old fraternity brothers. At one point, Tyler said loud enough for everyone to hear, "You always got me, you know what I mean?" Harrison just smiled that smug smile of his. I'd prepared a card the night before. Inside was a check for $1,000. Not the big money, but a gesture. I handed it to Tyler during the party. He took it without even looking at me. "Thanks," he muttered, stuffing it in his pocket before turning back to Harrison. Didn't open it. Didn't read the message I'd written. Just pocketed it and forgot about it. I went back inside and found myself washing the same dish 3 times, just to have something to do with my hands. Then I went upstairs to my office and logged into the education fund account. $257,000, give or take. Every cent from my salary. Melissa never contributed. Harrison certainly hadn't chipped in despite his mentorship. It was all me. I changed the password first. Then I opened a new account under a different trust structure. The beneficiary wasn't Tyler anymore. It was Emma Rodriguez, a girl I'd learned about through scholarship committee updates that Melissa automatically deleted. Emma's mom worked nights as a custodian at the building where Melissa used to work. Her dad had died of cancer 2 years ago, Emma had been accepted to MIT with a perfect application, but absolutely no way to pay for it. I transferred $250,000. The exact amount Yale had quoted for the first year, including housing and books. Once the transaction cleared, I printed the confirmation, folded it, and filed it in my desk drawer under Tyler's old science fair ribbons. Not for drama, just for records. Downstairs, someone popped another champagne bottle. I heard Harrison making a toast to the next great mind at Yale. Nobody mentioned my name. Nobody looked for me when I grabbed my keys and left. I sat in my car outside our house for a long time, just watching through the windows as people celebrated a future that was already different than they thought. A few days later, I met with Robert, my estate attorney. I hadn't seen him in 3 years, not since Melissa and I had refinanced the house to help with Tyler's future expenses. She'd called it an investment back then. I called it something else now. I'm redirecting the education fund, I told Robert straight up. He raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. I showed him everything. The trust documents, the timeline of deposits, the new beneficiary paperwork. Emma Rodriguez, first-generation college student. MIT acceptance. No financial means. How do you even know her? Robert asked. I explained about the scholarship committee, about reading her application essay, about her father's end and her mother's 2 jobs. Most people wouldn't do this, he said quietly. I just shrugged. That's kind of the point. We set up the scholarship that afternoon, called it the Sarah Foundation Award, after my sister who died at 19 in a car accident before she could pursue her dream of becoming an engineer. First-generation students only, with priority for STEM fields. Robert asked if I wanted to notify Emma personally. I said no. Let the school handle it. I wanted her to open that email and just feel seen by someone who didn't need credit. That same week, Melissa posted on Facebook, Tyler, in a Yale sweatshirt, standing next to Harrison. The caption read, "So proud of our future scientist. Big dreams run in this family, blessed, Yale-bound, proud mom." There wasn't a single mention of me. I looked at it for maybe 5 seconds before closing the app. The next morning, Emma's mother received an email from MIT. Full tuition, housing, meal plan, book allowance, even a laptop stipend. No strings attached, just one line at the bottom. This opportunity exists because someone believes in your daughter's future. That evening, I drove past Emma's neighborhood, not creeping, just remembering what hope used to look like. The house was old. Siding needed paint, rust on the gutters. But the porch light was on, and through the window I could see Emma at the kitchen table, laptop open, hand over her mouth. She wasn't screaming or jumping around. She just closed her eyes and smiled. That was enough for me. Melissa didn't scream at first when she found out about the tuition problem. It was more like a strangled gasp, the sound of someone realizing they'd miscalculated badly. It was a Tuesday morning. She'd opened an email during breakfast and frozen. Final notice. Second tuition payment overdue. Yale University. She stared at her laptop like it had insulted her personally. Refreshed the page multiple times. Checked spam, refreshed again. This has to be a mistake, she muttered. Then she called Tyler. I could hear him through the speakerphone from where I was standing in the hallway. Mom, what's wrong? Yale is saying the second payment is overdue. I thought your dad handled it. There was a pause. Then Tyler's voice, more annoyed than concerned. Wait, what? I thought he already paid it. Melissa snapped back. I thought so too. The panic was starting to set in now, that rising realization that maybe the foundation wasn't as solid as assumed. Call him, Tyler said. Maybe he forgot. She did. My phone rang twice before I picked up. I was in my office, actually reviewing receipts for Emma's laptop fund. We got an email from Yale, Melissa said, skipping any greeting. They're saying the second payment is overdue. You said you handled it. I didn't ask what email. I already knew. Did you forget to send the payment? Tyler asked. He was on speaker now. I leaned back in my chair and looked out the window. Calm, centered. No, I said simply. Tyler hesitated. Wait, so you did send it? I repeated myself. No, I didn't forget. I finally remembered. Silence on their end, confused, breathing. Then I hung up. No drama, no raised voice, just a statement and a disconnect. 5 minutes later, Melissa called back. I ignored it. Then Tyler. Then Melissa again. Then a number I didn't recognize. I ignored them all. Eventually, the buzzing stopped. I walked downstairs, poured water, and sat at the breakfast table where I used to sit every morning when Tyler was in high school. Same view of the backyard, same refrigerator with his childhood drawings still held up by magnets like relics from a different life. Upstairs, I could imagine Melissa's panic turning to anger. He's playing games, she probably hissed to someone, being petty because of one stupid speech. But this wasn't about pettiness. This was about finally understanding my worth, or lack thereof, in their eyes. Tyler sent me a text later. Can we talk? I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled out Emma's acceptance packet and reread the words I'd already memorized. Emma Rodriguez, class of 2029. No overdue notices. No final warnings. Just gratitude and possibility. The restaurant they picked for our talk was predictable, trendy, overpriced, quiet enough for private conversations. Melissa texted me the address like she was doing me a favor. When I arrived, Harrison was already there, sipping his drink like a general surveying his troops. Thanks for coming, Melissa said as I sat down. Harrison just nodded at me, didn't even stand up. Melissa launched into her prepared speech. We need to clear the air. This is all a misunderstanding. Tyler didn't mean anything by that speech. You've been in his life since he was tiny. You're his dad. Harrison jumped in with his 2 cents. He needs you, man. Whatever's going on, just put it aside for the kid. You raised him. He's yours, too. I sipped my water and let the silence stretch out. Then I said calmly, that's what I thought, too, until the graduation. Melissa stiffened. Harrison blinked. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a manila envelope, sliding it across the table. What is this? Melissa asked. Proof, I said, that I don't owe you anything anymore. Harrison opened it. Inside were the withdrawal slips, the reallocation documents, legal confirmation of the trust's new beneficiary, Robert's notary stamp on everything. The hell is this? Harrison muttered, voice cracking. I moved the funds, I said matter-of-factly. All of them, a while ago. You what? Melissa's voice jumped an octave. I didn't steal anything. I used my money, my work for a future I believe in. She hissed back. You're destroying his life over one speech. I shook my head. No, you and Tyler did that yourselves. I'm just making sure someone else gets the opportunity you pretended to value. Harrison threw the envelope down like it burned him. This isn't legal. I smiled. Robert made sure it's airtight. Melissa's hands were shaking now. She stared at me like I'd just spoken a foreign language. I don't believe this, she whispered. You'd throw him away like that? I stood up slowly. You mean the way you threw me away at that graduation? She had no response. Harrison leaned back, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. I straightened my collar. You taught him well, Melissa. How to pretend loyalty while cashing in on someone else's sacrifice. Tyler didn't learn that from me. Then I walked out. No yelling, no door slamming, just steady footsteps on tile. Outside, the air smelled like flowers and exhaust. I stood by my car for a moment, breathing it in. Through the restaurant window, I could see the host bringing them the check. Funny thing about expensive places, they don't care who raised whom. They only care who pays. And I wasn't paying anymore. The call came on a Thursday at 8:41 a.m. Tyler's name on my screen. 3 missed calls already that morning. I let it ring a few times before answering. Not because I was curious, I knew exactly why he was calling. Yale doesn't wait, and Tyler had spent his entire life assuming someone else would handle the hard stuff. His voice cracked before he finished his first sentence. Dad, they're saying I'm not enrolled. They sent emails and called. The funds never came through. My housing is being terminated. I have to leave by Monday. I don't understand. Yes, you do, I said flatly. No, I mean, can you just call them, fix this? He pleaded. They're not broken, I replied. There was a pause filled with shallow breathing. I could hear the panic building. They said if payment isn't made by noon tomorrow, I lose my spot. All of it. Everything, please. I waited for an apology, for some acknowledgement of what he'd done, but it never came. Just please, like I was an ATM he'd kicked, but still expected to dispense cash. I'm not the one who stranded you, I said, ice in my voice. You did that, with a microphone and an audience. Another pause, then fumbling sounds, and Melissa's voice exploded through the speaker. Shrill, frantic, unhinged. What the hell is wrong with you? He's your son. No, I said evenly. He's your project. He was a kid. He made a joke. No, you made a joke out of me. You built a life where I was the background noise, the wallet. When he repeated it in front of hundreds of people, you smiled. Melissa went silent. Then came the emotional manipulation attempt. You're ruining his life over a pride. No, I said. I'm just not funding the sequel. Tyler's shaky voice returned. Dad, I didn't mean it like that. But you meant it, didn't you? I asked. Silence. I didn't wait for an answer. I ended the call and blocked both numbers. Not from anger, from clarity. I sat on my porch with coffee, watching the leaves start to turn. Late September, sharp air. A notification buzzed on my laptop. An email from MIT's newsletter. Donor Spotlight. The Sarah Foundation Award helps deserving student pursue engineering dreams. Emma's photo was attached. She stood next to a robotics project, mid-laugh, genuinely happy. Not performing, not forced, just earned joy. I closed the email and leaned back. Somewhere, Tyler was frantically calling financial aid, begging a system that wasn't built to fix entitlement. And for the first time in 2 decades, I didn't feel responsible. I felt free. Harrison's office was all glass walls and leather furniture nobody used. Melissa stormed in one afternoon, phone in one hand, papers in the other. You need to fix this, she demanded. Harrison looked up, annoyed. Fix what? Yale revoked Tyler's enrollment, everything. They're threatening permanent expulsion for non-payment. Harrison raised his eyebrows. Melissa's voice dropped. And you're why this happened. You encouraged that speech, made Tyler think you'd be there for him. Harrison laughed bitterly. I acted like a guy enjoying the ride. But when bills are due, I don't sign checks. Your husband did. That was always the arrangement. You knew that. You smug fool, Melissa spat. He stood up. Don't blame me for your failed strategy. You treated the man like a placeholder and expected him to die grateful. He just had a spine. That's on you. The argument was overheard by the front desk staff. By afternoon, half the office knew. By evening, clients were canceling meetings. Ethics concerns, one email said. Uncomfortable environment, wrote another. The firm's social media turned off comments. By 5 p.m., Harrison had locked his office and stopped taking Melissa's calls. Meanwhile, Tyler was falling apart online. He posted a shaky video. Just him, hoodie pulled tight, face pale. Hey everyone, I know you've been asking what happened. I'm not dropping out. It's complicated. My stepdad decided not to fund my tuition. I don't know why. He just cut me off. He didn't expect the response. The comments weren't sympathetic. You mean the guy who raised you? So you humiliate your stepdad publicly, then cry when consequences happen? This is the man who paid for everything you ever had, bro. Screenshots of his graduation speech circulated again, side by side with Emma's scholarship announcement. The contrast was brutal. Melissa tried to clean it up with a filtered throwback photo of her and Tyler. Family is forever. This too shall pass. She disabled comments. Harrison, desperate for distance, posted some cryptic quote on LinkedIn about character. The irony was almost poetic. Tyler deleted his video, then re-uploaded with comments disabled. Too late. The internet doesn't forget. Neither do people with receipts. What started as a local story exploded into something bigger. Anonymous donor redirects Yale fund to janitor's daughter after stepson's public mockery. There I was in the photo, standing awkwardly next to Emma and her mother at the scholarship ceremony. No fancy suit, no prepared speech, just presence and proof. Within 48 hours, it was everywhere. Reddit, Twitter, Facebook. People shared it with captions like, "This is what real integrity looks like." TikTok edits emerged, syncing Tyler's "guy who paid the bills" line with clips of Emma's joy and my simple presence at her award ceremony. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. Tyler's name trended for all the wrong reasons. People dug through his social media history, found every post about Harrison being his real mentor, dissected the casual cruelty. Melissa claimed the story was twisted, called it a smear campaign, even hinted the money was always meant for charity. That made it worse. I never gave an interview, never made a statement, just went back to my normal life. Emma sent a thank you email. I responded with one line, "Make it count." She wrote back, "I already am." A week later, a letter arrived, handwritten, thick envelope, no return address. I recognized Tyler's shaky cursive immediately. He'd never mastered it, but tried when he was nervous. I let it sit on the kitchen counter for 2 days. When I finally opened it, I only read the first line. I didn't know. I didn't mean it like that. That was enough. I folded it up, slid it back into the envelope, and filed it with old tax returns and insurance policies. Not from cruelty, from completion. Tyler's words, like so many things, had come too late and were too focused on himself. Now they'd sit forever in a drawer labeled "What Could Have Been" between receipts and expired warranties. I drove to MIT on a quiet October morning. Students rushed between buildings with laptops and coffee, already immersed in their earned futures. I found Emma's dorm on the far side of campus. Nothing fancy, but solid. I didn't announce myself. Didn't want gratitude. Just wanted confirmation. I'd brought a winter coat. Navy-lined, warm enough for Boston's brutal cold. I'd asked her mom for the size without explaining why. Also brought a basic toolkit. Screwdriver, pliers, flashlight, duct tape. My kind of welcome package. Emma wasn't there when I knocked. That was fine. Better even. I left everything with the resident assistant and wrote a short note. Things break, you fix them, you're built for this. D. I walked slowly back through the hallway. Open doors revealed chaotic, hopeful little worlds, the smell of ramen and possibility. As I left the building, a student nearly bumped into me. "Sorry, sir," she said, then added, "Thanks." I nodded, not from ego, just acknowledgement. Outside, I paused on the steps and looked across the lawn where students studied in circles, completely absorbed in their work. Somewhere in that building, the girl I'd chosen over the boy I'd raised was starting a life built on persistence, not performance. The email stopped. Yale officially withdrew Tyler's enrollment. His student email account disappeared. The digital connection severed. The house went on the market last week. I saw the sign driving through the old neighborhood. Staged photos with fresh flowers, nothing hinting at what had rotted underneath. I heard through Robert that Harrison ghosted Melissa completely. Cut contact, changed firms. His assistant leaked a voicemail. Melissa begging him to call back. "You said you'd help." No response. His new firm was younger, cleaner. They didn't want scandal baggage. Tyler posted once on his now private Instagram, the same account he used to flood with polished photos and jokes, meant to make him look effortlessly put together. Now it showed a single new post, a blurry shot of a worn coffee mug beside an open notebook, dimly lit as if he hadn't bothered to adjust anything before taking it. The caption read, "Starting over. Some lessons cost more than tuition." It was unusually simple for him. No hashtags, no attempts to soften it with humor, just a sentence that hinted at someone finally realizing the fallout couldn't be dodged. I saw the post and kept scrolling. I didn't respond, not out of anger, but out of closure. The story between us was finished. And honestly, what revenge could compare to this? Knowing he couldn't talk his way back, couldn't charm his way around accountability, couldn't manipulate his way into the life he'd mocked for so long. Back on campus, I'd walked all the way to the edge of the quad before stopping and turning back for one final look. The evening light had softened everything, casting long shadows across the grass and making the old brick buildings glow with that warm, familiar hue I used to take for granted. Windows flickered with faint yellow light as students settled in for the night, studying, talking, living their lives without realizing how quickly it all moves. One of those glowing windows was Emma's. I could almost picture her inside, reading my notes slowly, carefully, smoothing the paper between her fingers, hanging up the coat with that gentle precision she used whenever she appreciated something, smiling, but only to herself, not posting about it, not turning it into a performance or a spectacle, just letting a private moment be private, just living. A breeze rolled through the quad, crisp and clean, carrying the scent of damp leaves and distant cafeteria coffee. I breathed it in and felt something inside me loosen. I smiled, not because I'd executed some carefully crafted victory or proved anything to anyone. I smiled because, for the first time in an unbelievably long stretch of years, I had given something meaningful to someone who actually saw me as a person, not a resource or a stepping stone. Someone who understood instinctively that opportunities aren't granted by bloodline or entitlement. They're earned, respected, and appreciated. And sometimes justice doesn't arrive with fireworks or public humiliation. Sometimes it's subtle, a quiet redirection, a shift in trajectory. Sometimes justice is choosing to build someone else's future instead of continuing to bankroll someone's complacency. Tyler had been handed every opportunity imaginable, the kind of chances people spend entire lives chasing. But he treated them as guarantees, as something woven into the fabric of his identity rather than something he needed to honor. He mocked the foundation while standing on it, certain it would always hold. He forgot that foundations can shift, especially when the person supporting them realizes their effort is being met with disrespect. He learned in the hardest way possible that loyalty has limits, that respect is not optional when someone has sacrificed years of time, money, and emotional labor to help you. He believed he was untouchable. He wasn't. I don't regret my decision, not even for a heartbeat. Every time I imagine Emma in that tiny dorm room, hunched over her desk with her engineering textbooks open, working through equations late into the night, not because anyone expects it of her, but because she wants a future she's willing to fight for. I feel nothing but certainty. Knowing that someone believed in her during a moment when nobody else could, that's worth more than any relationship built on obligation, guilt, or hollow gratitude. Tyler made his choice standing at that microphone, making a joke at my expense he thought would impress the room. And I made mine quietly afterward. The only difference is that my choice actually changed someone's life for the better. My choice mattered. That's the thing about being taken for granted. For a long time, you tell yourself it's fine, that you're helping, that your effort is love or duty or generosity. But eventually, there comes a moment, a sudden realization, or a slow, painful buildup, where you wake up and understand you don't have to accept it anymore. You don't have to keep pouring energy, money, and emotional bandwidth into people who treat you like a safety net or an ATM instead of a human being. And when you finally step back, when you take that same energy and redirect it towards someone who genuinely values it, a strange kind of peace settles in. Not the thrill of revenge, not the burn of anger, just peace. Quiet, steady, earned peace. The last time I drove past our old house, the one I had invested so much into, there was a bright red "sold" sign planted in the yard like a flag marking the end of an era. I didn't slow down, I just glanced at it as I passed and felt an unexpected lightness. A new family would move in soon, probably excited, probably hopeful. A fresh start for them. And in a way, a fresh start for me too. A symbolic closing of a chapter that had stretched on for far too long. I don't know where Melissa and Tyler ended up. I don't particularly care to. I hope for their sake they learned something from all this. But it's no longer my responsibility to guide their growth or soften their landings. My responsibility now is to myself, and occasionally to someone like Emma, someone who reminds me why generosity, when properly placed, still matters. Emma graduates in 3 years. I'll be there if she invites me. Not for recognition, not to be thanked or photographed or mentioned in any speech. I just want to witness what happens when belief meets effort. To see what I helped build with a simple act of choosing someone who deserved a chance. To watch the future unfold for someone who will actually appreciate it. That's the real ending to this story. Not what I lost. Not the family that dismissed me the moment I stopped serving their needs. The ending is what I helped create, the future I chose to invest in, the path I quietly cleared for someone who won't waste it. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's choosing to live well, to step forward without bitterness, and to help others do the same. Sometimes the most powerful answer is simply moving on, with purpose, with clarity, and with peace.